Welcome, everyone, to Thought Leadership Thursday. I'm your host, Mark Florka. And this Thursday, we have an excellent episode, very interesting. I'm trying to say interesting and excellent at the same time, with Amy Spike of Select Custom Solutions. Amy, welcome to Thought Leadership Thursday. And tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for Select Custom Solutions.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here today, and I'm excited to talk about dough conditioners and what Select Custom Solutions has to offer. So, a little bit about me. I have a bachelor's degree in food science and a minor in European studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I have a passion for baking. I am a food technologist on the food and beverage innovation team at Select Custom Solutions, where I've worked for the past 7 years. My role involves technical services and product development by working with customers and their applications in addition to innovation on our branded ingredient portfolio of products. Select Custom Solutions is a powder blending business specializing in contract manufacturing, functional ingredient blends, and ingredient distribution. Since 1989, we've provided bulk and retail options for some of the world's top food, beverage, and nutritional brands. Our specialty ingredient blends cater to companies using dough conditioners and developers, protein products, stabilizer systems, and anti-caking agents. We also have some solutions for companies looking for functional and economic alternatives to more traditional ingredients. We have off-the-shelf options and can create customized ingredient blends and turnkey products with customers.
Awesome. Wow. You have quite an extensive background and information there. And that pairing of European studies and passion for baking, that really has sort of come together now for you, I believe. Because, I mean, well, I'm biased because I trained in Europe. I grew up in Germany. And a lot of what we see, especially in the modern baking these days, is that it goes back to a lot of the European roots and the beginnings of the sort of modern baking there that we have in that comes from Europe. But speaking of baking and these things, now we want to kind of get into what our dough condition is. But before we get into that, we want to talk a little bit about the dough system. So tell us give us the food scientist perspective and your experience. Tell us a little bit about the typical dough systems that are used in bread production today.
Sure. There are a few different dough systems that are commonly used in commercial bread making, but today we'll just talk about the sponge and dough method, straight dough method, and the no-time dough method. First, we have the sponge and dough method, which has 2 stages. First, you need to make your sponge or pre-ferment. Water, flour, and yeast are mixed together and fermented under specific time, temperature, and relative humidity conditions. Second, the sponge is mixed with the remaining ingredients to make the dough. This then goes through the makeup and proofing stages and is then baked. The extra fermentation from the sponge provides unique fermented flavors, but that extra fermentation costs time and production space. In addition, this type of dough can also have less mixing and processing tolerances. Next, straight dough and no-time dough systems are similar methods where all the ingredients are mixed until full dough development and the desired dough temperature is reached, but differ when it comes to the amount of floor time needed. These are the type of dough systems that typically use dough conditioners, which then have increased mixing and processing tolerances. Due to the straight dough and no-time dough systems not having that extra fermentation time, there can be a reduction in fermentation flavors. However, these methods are good for facilities with high throughput and space constraints, as you do not need the space and time for the extra fermentation, and can also lead to a reduction in equipment and labor.
Yep, absolutely. And it's always reminds me of sorry to be off topic a little bit, but as every time I hear no time, I always hear this song from the Guess Who in the background that goes on, where the no time for you. But no time is extremely popular in a lot of the when in-store bakeries. We're still doing a lot of bread production, which now has tended to move to par bake and frozen dough for the most part. So we don't see as much of the no time anymore. But you guys have some solutions, and but next we want to get to talking about the stages. And if we want to talk about the stages of dough development process in straight dough and no-time dough systems. So give us a
Sure.
little bit of rundown on that.
Sure. The stages can differ depending on the type of dough and your finished application, but I'll take you through an example of a typical process for a pan bread. First, we have mixing, and mixing is an important step in any dough system and has a few objectives. First, you need a uniform incorporation of all the ingredients in addition to hydrating all the dry ingredients. Remember, gluten doesn't work correctly if it's not properly hydrated. Mixing also kneads the dough and develops gluten to retain gas. Oxygen reacts with gluten to strengthen it and make the dough more elastic. Additionally, mixing incorporates air into the dough, which is needed for the bread to rise. Most air cells are established during mixing, then expand via yeast or chemical leaveners later in the process. Like I mentioned before, in straight dough and no-time dough systems, all the ingredients are mixed in one step. The next step in the process is where the straight dough and no-time dough systems vary a little. Straight time dough systems typically have a 2 to 4 hour bulk fermentation step after mixing. No-time dough systems typically have 5 to 20 minutes of floor time instead of the bulk fermentation step.
Yep.
Next, there's the makeup stage. Both dough systems then go through the makeup stage, which consists of dividing, rounding, intermediate proofing, molding, and panning. The bulk dough gets divided into individual pieces, which are then rounded. This creates a uniform shape and a smooth surface in addition to degassing the dough. Intermediate proofing follows to allow the dough to relax, which allows for better machinability. The dough then goes through the molding process, which has 3 sections. Dough is sheeted into a flat piece for partial degassing, then curled into a cylinder. Then the seam is compressed to on to the next stage, panning. In the panning stage, the dough is then transferred to the pan seam side down, which is important. Lastly, the dough goes through a final proofing process and is then baked.
Yeah, excellent. That's fantastic. The thinking back to this too, as you've mentioned already and touched on, is that it's important that you not only lose the fermented flavor when you go to straight time and no time, but there's also other activity that happens. Like you said, that oxygen gets at the gluten. There's enzyme activity and all these things. I mean, in the old days, long ago, now I'm dating myself, right? But I mean, all they did was just try to increase the yeast and make that a no time. But then they quickly realized that they're not getting the relaxation, they're not getting the extensibility beyond flavor. I mean, there's so many other things that are affected by fermentation and rest time. So to overcome this, that's where then dough conditioners started to come in. And so what are dough conditioners and why do you use them?
So dough conditioners have a few different names, including dough developers, dough improvers, or dough strengtheners. They are ingredient blends that improve dough processing along with the quality of baked products in high-speed production, commonly in straight dough or no-time dough systems. 2 main dough conditioning ingredients are reducing agents and oxidizing agents. First, let's talk about reducing agents, which help break bonds between the proteins and gluten. Examples of these are cysteine, sulfites, and inactivated yeast. Typically, you want a fast-acting reducer to first relax the dough. One benefit of dough softening via reducing agents is reduced mixing time, which means less wear and tear on equipment and less energy used. Reducing agents can also lead to an increase in dough extensibility and sheetability and a decrease in shrinking and snapback. Next, we have oxidizing agents, which help form bonds between the proteins and gluten. Examples of these are bromates, ascorbic acid, and peroxides. When paired with fast-acting reducers, you can add slow-acting oxidizers to then build back strength later in the process. One benefit of dough strengthening via oxidizing agents is improved dough handling by its increased firmness and reduced dough stickiness. Oxidizing agents can lead to an increase in dough extensibility, therefore gas retention. If your dough is too soft, then it won't have the strength to support itself when the dough is rising and baking. Some dough conditioners can have one or both reducing and oxidizing agents, but your final application will dictate what ingredients you need.
Absolutely. And should note here too that sometimes some people refer to the oxidizing agents as dough dryers, although they technically don't dry anything, but it's just a perception because it reduces some of the stickiness and processing.
Mhm.
And so, what kind of applications, or in what kind of applications, I should say, do dough conditioners work best?
So for dough conditioners with just reducing agents, typical applications would be tortillas and fresh or frozen pizza crusts. This would be part of our PZ dough conditioner line,
Right.
but
So we
that's a
got a lot of
topic for another.
stretching happening and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
For dough conditioners with both reducing agents and oxidizing agents, typical applications are fresh or frozen yeasted doughs like various
Mhm.
bread, rolls, sweet rolls, donuts, bagels, etc. This would encompass our Ready Sponge dough developer line.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Um, and so now you mentioned Ready Sponge. So what is Ready Sponge and how does it help in applications?
So Ready Sponge is a line of our dough developers that contain a fast-acting reducing agent, vegan cysteine, and then a slow-acting oxidizing agent along with other ingredients that can improve the color, flavor, and texture of your product. To start, we have our original Ready Sponge, which is a legacy product that's been used for over 60 years.
Wow.
We continue to evolve and expand the Ready Sponge line to suit consumer preferences and product regulation changes. We've added Ready Sponge C, Ready Sponge P, and Ready Sponge P NB, which I'll come back to in a second. Our innovation and sales team members also work with companies to customize blends that specifically meet their needs if our stock options are not a right match.
Okay.
Uh, Now let's talk about the other versions of Ready Sponge. We have Ready Sponge C, which is non-brominated and made with ascorbic acid. So how I
Uh-huh.
like to remember it is that ascorbic acid is also known as vitamin C, therefore Ready Sponge C. Our original Ready Sponge and Ready Sponge C are made with whey, and the added dairy solids enhance flavor and color and promote moisture retention in the finished good. This may eliminate the need to add non-fat dry milk or other dairy solids to your recipe. We also have some options that are made without whey for kosher parve requirements with similar active ingredients to the original Ready Sponge. Ready Sponge P, which stands for parve, is kosher parve, and Ready Sponge PNB is kosher parve and is made with ascorbic acid. Our
Oh, okay.
plant-based Ready Sponge P options have a corn flour base, which can improve texture and moisture retention in finished goods. With these Ready Sponge dough conditioners, mixing time can be reduced by up to 40%. And not only does this save time, but this also can save on energy and
Yep.
equipment wear and tear. In some applications, we found that Ready Sponge products can increase volume by at least 10 to 15%.
Wow, that's very interesting. And I had no idea that Ready Sponge had been 60 years already, right? It's like, that
Mm-hmm.
still baffles me. That's amazing. And so many different things that you've taken care of. Wanted to also, sometimes we get asked about acid. Acid and C are not the same thing. While they are acidic, they do not perform the same function. And the other thing is, while ascorbic acid is the same as vitamin C, um, it is consumed in the processing, fermentation, and baking process. So it is not something that you would have sufficient residual to make a vitamin
Right.
claim on your bread. Plus, by the time you put enough vitamin C into the dough, you would have a very highly over-oxidized dough anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be not very good, right? So just wanted to add those little pieces of wisdom there or thought, right? And so some people may have heard of the ingredient bans in California. And so what do you know about that, and what kind of compliant products do you have for that?
So on October 7th, 2023, the California Food Safety Act, also known as Assembly Bill 418 or AB 418, was signed into law in the state of California. To quote the bill, commencing January 1st, 2027, a person or entity shall not manufacture, sell, deliver, distribute, hold, or offer for sale in commerce a food product for human consumption that contains any of the following substances: brominated vegetable oil, potassium bromate, propylparaben, and red dye 3. This bill will have many effects across the food industry, including the baking sector, which will likely call for reformulations. We at Select Custom Solutions already have some non-brominated ready sponge dough conditioners on hand that can replace dough conditioners made with potassium bromate. The first that we have is Ready Sponge C, which is non-brominated version of the original Ready Sponge. We also offer a non-brominated kosher par version, Ready Sponge P and B. In addition to these off-the-shelf options, we can also work with customers to create custom blends to more suit their individual needs.
Excellent. So, Amy, how can people get more information about Select Custom Solutions and the products and opportunities that you provide?
Sure, you can go to our website, selectcustomsolutions.com, and contact us or request a sample. You can visit our LinkedIn or email us at info@select-cs.com.
Excellent. That is fantastic. Wow, you've really provided us with a lot of information. And I want to add to that. I mean, your focus is bakery, but Select Custom Solutions, you guys do so much more than just bakery. I mean, it's just amazing. And so you never know, if you have interesting ideas that are not strictly bakery or something new, talk to them. I mean, between Amy and her colleagues, they can probably come up with a solution for you and a blend that will work, perfectly for what you're trying to accomplish, right? And I'm always a big proponent. Talk to your suppliers. They have a lot of smart people that they hire, example, right? And they can really help you because you get their extra brain power for free. It's built into what you're buying already, right? It's like, like when we have those credit cards, we collect the travel miles and things like that. Well, it's the same thing, only you don't actually have to cash in points. All you have to do is ask a question and you get rewarded, right? And so I really love that. I mean, thank you very much for your time, Amy. This really shows also to me, and I want to touch on the leadership aspect of this, not only from Select Custom Solutions, but as you can see, as a food scientist, it takes a lot more than just standing at a bench and making some bread or things like that. There's a lot more to it. You have to do a lot more research into the laws and regulations, as you told us about the things with California, the reactivities, understanding the processes of different commercial bakeries and how these things apply, understanding things like kosher and kosher parf. And there's so much more to than just taking a pipette and dropping some liquids into something and calling yourself a scientist, right? And so I really appreciate your leadership there, Amy, and showing us also that there's a lot more to it than just getting to play with food, although that's always my favorite part, right?
Oh,
So
same.
all right, thank you very much. And that's our Thought Leadership Thursday for today. And we look forward to seeing you all in the next one.